Hello, St. Paul's. This week I want to give you an update on the Chancel remodeling project, as it's been in the works for a long time, and I'm sure you're wondering what's happened to it. The chancel, for those who aren't familiar with Episcopal jargon, is the portion of the church that acts like a stage. In our case, it's the raised area behind the altar rail where the choir and the organ, the altar and the altar party are positioned. And in the picture behind me, it's the lit up area. It's been 2 years since we started on this project. So first, a little history. In early 2020, a generous donor promised us chairs to replace our pews on condition that we also replace the chancel floor. That floor behind the altar, a wooden floor, was sagging and in desperate need of work. There were many steps and hazards throughout the chancel. The sacristy, the chancel, and the chapel were not accessible to wheelchairs. And there was a lack of flexibility. The pews and the choir screens were fixed to the floor and very, very heavy. And the chancel was very narrow, only 900 square feet. I once played a concert as part of an orchestra, and I can tell you it was not big enough for an orchestra. Chapter was enthusiastic about undergoing a wholesale remodel of the chancel, and the generous donor, it turned out, was willing to expand the gift significantly. So we engaged Domus Studio architects. They have a lot of church experience and they're conveniently located at the end of Olive Street. A committee started to meet via Zoom, and we started in the fall of 2020, meeting with the architects regularly to design the new space. The project expanded to include remodeling the whole sacristy and then shrank again. Our consultant on the 525 Olive project, the apartment building project, Tom Delaney, graciously offered his services to us pro bono. After many, many conversations, we ended up with a design that seemed to please everyone. It expands the chancel from 900 to 1,300 square feet. It removes steps and built-ins so that the entire area is flexible. It includes an ADA compliant ramp behind the organ to both chapel and chancel. It puts the chancel on the same level as the sacristy. It provides the same floor surface throughout the chapel, the chancel, and the sacristy. It provides excellent, good quality, latest version of lighting, and it upgrades the audio-visual system. I'm going to show you some before and after pictures to give you a sense, a more visual sense of this. So here we have, if I can make it a little larger. Here we have the existing floor plan of the church. You can see that the shaded area here is the chancel with its steps, with the altar and the organ, and then the font is at the far end of the church, and that is, as traditional, is an octagon. Here is the pulpit, here's the chapel, and the sacristy. Moving on to the proposed floor plan, you immediately see that the chancel floor area is much expanded. We've pushed out the chancel so that the front here echoes the octagon of the font at the other end. The chancel floor extends back behind the organ, and there is a ramp up here behind the organ to the chapel, and then a quick U-turn into the chancel itself. And all of the furniture on the chancel is easily moved, and it goes straight into the sacristy on one level. Here's a photograph of how it looks now behind the organ, standing in the south aisle, looking up into the chapel. And here is a rendering of the ramp with steps to the organ, and then the ramp very gently going up to the chapel, then a quick U-turn into the chancel area. These railings are simply for the drawings. We will have much more attractive railings. And if you can see a dotted red line, here it's rather faint, but that is an outline of where the organ console would normally reside. So having come up with a design that everybody seemed to like, it was time to start bringing in other professionals, electricians, contractors, structural engineers, environmental experts, audiovisual companies, woodworkers, and so forth. The more people involved in a project, the slower the progress. And it slowed down a lot as we waited for all these professionals to examine the space and come up with designs and estimates. We went through the permitting phase with the city. It was very slow because of the COVID pandemic. We ran a small fundraising campaign to fund the creation of custom-made choir screens that could be moved by one person. And then we met in the early fall of 2021 and reviewed the project budget and timeline. A number of things had changed over the course of the year. Prices of all the materials had increased significantly, and the timelines for ordering materials had stretched due to the supply chain issue. There were some nice-to-have elements that had crept into the mainstream of the project and added significantly to the overall cost. So we went through the scope and we trimmed it back to what we felt was really needed. And we still ended up with a gap of nearly $100,000 between the original generous gift and the new total cost. As you may know, Chapter has a policy that we don't sign a contract or make financial commitments unless we know we have the money to pay for the entire project. So we couldn't make a start on any of the project until we knew where the money was coming from. At the very end of the year, I was able to secure the promise of that additional funding from another generous parishioner. So where are we today? Well, the general contractor is reaching out to the various trades to get final firm prices and to start the procurement process. We know that some of the lighting is caught up in the supply chain delay, and there'll be a 20-week lead time from when we order those lights. We know that the procurement phase will take at least several weeks. The general contractor is currently estimating a start date for demolition and construction of late March. The very first thing that will be done is to have the organ moved from the chancel down to the nave floor so that it can be out of the way of potential damage. This requires specialized professionals, and we have that move booked for the end of February. Martin and Gabriel will be able to continue playing and directing with some ingenuity. We do plan to continue services in the nave throughout the construction period, and I've asked the team to ensure that we will have a usable chancel floor of some kind, however temporary, for Holy Week and Easter, April 10th to 17th. It's been a slow project, and there remain some questions, but I am excited about the possibilities that this remodel will open up for us, as well as keeping our people safer and making ministry more accessible. I am so grateful for our donors. See you on Sunday.